We enjoy dissent. Unfortunately, the left does not. It is astounding how much so that they are employing ways to stifle dissent and stifle free expression. Here to talk about a little of that is Peter Rex, CEO of the tech investment company Rex. That's just it. Peter Rex, welcome to the Ellen Nathan Show. You're with Karen Kataline.
Karen, thanks for having me.
Well, it's good having you. So people are being fired at an astonishing rate as a way to kind of enter this discussion, which is massive and has many, many tentacles out there. And I believe, and you may too, that the government, this lawless government that we're dealing with, is using private businesses as their proxy to enforce unconstitutional laws that they couldn't get through any other way. But there's also a cultural censorship problem. I just heard that radical wokesters decided that 91-year-old Clint Eastwood is now under scrutiny for something he said during the Oscars, which was totally benign, in 1973. What the heck is going on? Tell us about this, would you?
Yeah, Karen, absolutely. I mean, I'm particularly focused on technology leadership in general, but what you're saying is definitely true across the board. But I think tech especially is faced with a bigoted leadership that is both actively censoring people through the technology that people are on, but they're also now going after employees in their personal capacity and forcing them to resign, which they've done with the CEO on the West Coast, which I raised a flag on and wrote an article about. And this is about an issue that Americans are divided about. It's 50-50. And yet I'm the only tech CEO that's coming out and saying something here to even flag that this is a problem. So I think the technology industry is a huge issue, and it's tied in with the censorship problem that you're pointing out. And it's sort of like, at least in the Inquisition time, you have a trial, right? Right now, there's not even a trial. They just...
No, nothing. But now you alluded to something. We've got time, I think, to kind of unpack this a little bit. You said Americans are divided. What exactly, not that it should matter because our Constitution should protect our rights whether people agree or not, and that's, of course, part of the crisis we're in right now. What are Americans divided about?
Well, the issue of the pro-life issue, they're divided. I mean, about 50% of Americans are pro-life, and it should be an issue that we're able to debate as a country, as a people, figure it out, work our way forward. I'm personally pro-life, end to end, womb to tomb, but I understand that other people are not, and they're still welcome in my company to speak their voice in their personal life or even at the workplace, because I don't have a monopoly on truth. Nobody has a monopoly on truth. It's extreme arrogance to think that anybody has a monopoly on truth, and to then impose your viewpoints onto other people and stifle other voices is dangerous, and we've seen where that's gone in the past, in history, what that's done and what that can lead to. And we can't go down that road as a country. We got to put a line in the sand and say, hey, enough with this, and that's got to end.
Well, I know you're not a lawyer, but, we used to think all of this was unconstitutional, or that, just at the time when the left decided to stop intervening in private business, now they're saying that private business has a right to do anything they want because they're bullying and intimidating these businesses from the back end. Do you follow what I'm saying? It's like they used to say, oh yeah, a Christian baker can be made to and forced to bake a gay wedding cake, which happens to be a case I followed carefully because it's in my home state of Colorado. But then they can flip over in a dime and say it's private business. They can do whatever they want to them, including fire people for what they say on their private media pages or whatever. How does that work?
Well, I mean, I'm in agreement with you about having private businesses. They can do whatever they'd like, right? However, the bigger issue here is culturally where things are going, and that we've got to stand up as a people and say, hey, that's not right. And we can use the force of culture to fight back against this cancer of canceling people, because it's a cancer in the body of the American public square. And then additionally, the technology companies are controlling our communication protocols. So, I mean, that's the underlying bedrock of our ability to have a functioning democracy is for people to debate and express their opinions and be heard. And they're controlling that. So we need to, and what I'm working on and what I need help with is building out new tech leadership. And I'm building it out of Texas. I've moved my company entirely to Texas to build this out. And we're just gangbusters building this out.
Love it. Well, you came to, I don't know if you came to the right place, but I mentioned that my home state is Colorado, but our listeners know that, early this spring I moved to Texas too. And, these states, we're having a reverse kind of, confederacy here in which people are moving to Florida and Texas and other places for more liberty. Tell us about this company that you're building and what you need help with.
Yep. So Silicon Valley has a monopoly on technology. That in Seattle, they are radicalized left right now, and that ecosystem is very rich. What we need to do is we need to build a new ecosystem out of a free place like Texas, and that's where I'm building it. And what I need help with is I need talent, aligned talent, elite talent in the technology industry to join us, continue to join us. I need capital that is aligned with our vision, our ethos, long-term capital. And thirdly, I need people like you, Karen, that are going to be supporters, people part of our alliance to build and ensure that we have a free world. Because if we see this continue to happen and a monopoly on truth happen out of an area that is radicalized, they're holding us hostage essentially out there because they have a monopoly on technology. But sort of like how we had a problem with Middle Eastern oil, where it was in one area, until we got independence by building a new ecosystem out of the Permian Basin in Midland, Texas, that gave us the ability to have optionality to break up that cartel that was controlling our oil, right, and holding the West hostage. Right now, we have a similar situation with technology, and that includes that we have to have a long-term mindset to build this thing out. Going after just Facebook or going after Twitter or whatever, that's not going to solve it. And coming at it from a legal perspective, and I do have a law degree from Harvard. In fact, you said you're not a lawyer. I guess technically I might be a lawyer, though I try to dissociate myself from that.
You're a recovering lawyer.
Yeah, I never practiced. I always was an entrepreneur, right?
Listen, Peter, you're trying to put together a tech company. We've seen lots of these companies crop up like CloudHub and Parler and Gab and what have you. How is what you're doing different from all that, and how can you explain it to us layman people who just barely get the technological stuff done that we need done for ourselves?
Yeah, Karen, I mean, it's a great question, and it's one I want to dig into and really help the listeners to understand this, because I have a very different perspective on this than a lot of people who are aligned with me. In fact, I think they're getting it wrong. They think they can go after Facebook, Twitter, and set up replications of it. And if you replicate Facebook, Twitter, or whatever, and you do it separately, it's going to solve the problem. But what I'm saying is that's not going to work. That's a very linear strategy. We're still going to have the problem. The problem is much deeper. It goes down to the metal. I mean, they have a monopoly on technology because of the talent density out there in a 20-mile by 20-mile area, Silicon Valley, and also in Seattle where they have the talent density. And they are radicalized left. And you got to go down to the metal. And when I say down to the metal, I mean down to the servers that are supporting the infrastructure that allows communications and all technologies to flow on the internet and on your phones and even your phone itself. Right? If you look at the phones, right, it's Apple and it's Google, it's Android and the iPhone systems, right? So it's really two, and they're in one area, Silicon Valley. And they have the ability to deplatform you as well, to control speech. And you look at Facebook, Twitter, you look at AWS, that's running servers, right? Well, who's the other option? Azure?
What's
they're
AWS?
Also in the same area. AWS would be Amazon Web Services. That's where a lot of people run their servers.
Okay.
Yep. And then you could be canceled off of the server side. Well, they'll just cut you off. They can also, so they cut you right at, when I say down to the metal, that's, back in the day, people used to have a server with their computer, right? They would have like a little server next to the computer. Now you go on and you save your data in a much more efficient way through server farms. And then on top of that, you have layered software that helps you manage all your data and manage your information. So all those technologies are absolutely critical for us to run our communication and run our businesses, and they're controlled out of Silicon Valley and Seattle now, which are radicalized left. So the problem is a much bigger problem. I analogize it to the Middle Eastern ecosystem, that we needed to create a new ecosystem around oil in order to get independence. And I think there's a good argument to be made that we're able to pull out of the Middle Eastern wars because we're no longer oil dependent. We have our own oil source due to fracking and the ability for us to drop those costs. At the very least, we've been able to put a check on that cartel because oil was really the underbelly of our economy. We were running off it for so long. And we saw that back in the 70s with the Iran problem that we had. It was able to spike up our oil prices. And since then, we've been beholden to this cartel. Well, likewise, by analogy, what I'm saying is we have a bit of a cartel situation. Maybe it's just we could say they're all radicalized and they're in a certain area that's radicalized. And they have a monopoly on technology. We need to build a new technology ecosystem. This is a 20-year plan I'm working against. And I'm leading the charge on this. But what I'm saying is I don't want to be alone. I need help. I need an alliance. That's why I need aligned capital. I need aligned talent, elite talent. I also need aligned people that are elite like you, that are influencers to help support this, to grow this out. It's going to take a while to do it. We need to back entrepreneurs who are grounded in a mentality to ensure free speech. Often I'll say they need to be grounded in Judeo-Christian principles. Now, I don't necessarily think that they need to be Jewish or Christian. No, it's not a religious thing. I'm just saying Judeo-Christian principles because those are principles I can cite that are timeless. They've been around for 2,000 plus years, and they've proven to be good as a self-governing restraint. We need leadership that is going to be restrained from imposing themselves on others. So, for example, for me, we can't have conservative libertarians, faith-based people create technology and then start to impose themselves onto others. We have to restrain ourselves. We can't become ourselves we can't do what they've been doing to us. We have to do it very differently and keep an open system.
Generally does happen. There's this mission creep that happens, but in this case, we're on steroids. You said a lot of things that I want to get some quick clarification of in our few minutes left. I couldn't help but think about what you mentioned about the oil and gas. Is it any wonder that the left doesn't want us to be energy independent? We were energy independent, an unexpected byproduct in less than 4 years with Donald Trump, and that's one of the first things that the Biden administration shut down. Oh, God forbid we should be energy independent. It's all about control and manipulation. What would your company, first of all, I don't know if we have 20 years. You said it's a 20-year plan. I mean, as Donald Trump pointed out, and I don't always agree with Donald Trump, but I think he's an honest broker, said, I don't know if we'll have a country left by then, but let's say we do, God willing, let's hope we do. What is your project going to look like to the average person? What's it going to look like? Is there going to be a totally other internet? What would we be looking at?
I say 20-year plan. It's really to force people to think about a much bigger need that we have here. And you could start off by, striking good blows right away. And some of the blows that we need to strike is we need to get what it looks like is really a partnership of capital that is aligned. That means investors that are aligned with the right types of entrepreneurs in the tech industry and technology talent density that is on par and even better long term than Silicon Valley, but at least in the short term, we can have a fighting chance. And I think we do have enough talent here. I moved to Austin, Texas, for example, because there's a good talent density already in place, but it's not nearly on the scale of Silicon Valley. It's about 1/100th or 1/1000th the density, but we can get a start going now. I think within 3 years, we can get strong ecosystem of aligned people. And I'm trying to figure this out live, how we're going to do this, but we're thinking about creating some sort of a document that people sign where they say, hey, we're going to, as tech foundation, we are going to ourselves. Almost like a Bill of Rights where it's a restraint. We are not going to impose ourselves in areas that is outside of our purview. We're going to stick to what we do, and we're going to actually try to avoid people who are cancerous coming into leadership, because you can't have a functioning body if you have something that's eating away at it. So the only thing we could be intolerant towards is those who are intolerant.
And that does make sense. So, boy, I'd love to get more on your biography. We only have about a minute left. Going from, you went to Harvard Law School, or did you go to Harvard undergrad? Harvard Law School. And you ended up a tech investor. Boy, that sounds fascinating. Tell us how people can find you and support your project here, and especially if they have talents to offer.
Rex.com, REX.com. Go there and you can, navigate, find your way on different things.
Wow, just Rex. That must have been hard to get that website. 3 letters, Rex.com. Are you accepting donations? How does this work?
Investors, not donations, because we have I'm a tech entrepreneur, so we actually create companies. We have numerous companies we have up and standing that are pushing forward, and investors have the ability to invest in equity in those companies right now.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that is exactly what we need right now. That's the one thing Obama got right: community organizing. Communities working together for liberty. I'm glad you're on our side, Peter Rex. So go to Rex.com. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. And, sometimes necessity breeds invention, and Peter Rex is doing just that.